Today on Business Growth Talks, we have Karen Evers, who is a HR leader with 25 years worth of experience in corporate America. In 2022, she founded Human Smarts, a fractional HR consultancy helping startups and small businesses navigate talent, strategy, culture, compliance, and payroll. Specializing in financial services, Karen partners with CPA firms, investment advisors, and insurance brokers to provide white glove HR support. Her people first approach ensures her businesses can scale without the burden of managing HR on its own. Just a quick one. I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining me today and being with me on this show. One thing that is really, really important I want to share with you is this show is growing really well, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so pleased that you're enjoying this content. But if you could please hit the follow and subscribe to this channel, it will really help the channel on its being able to grow and the people that we can have on this show. So please do consider, if you have a moment, please can you hit the subscribe button and the follow button, and I would really appreciate it. Hello, Karen. How are you today?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
It's absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. So, as with all of the start of my questions on my show, what does a business mindset mean to you?
So, a business mindset for me, I'm a business junkie. So, I love business. I've always been a business junkie, and I know that's rare for my profession. But for me, it's what makes a lot of the world go round is making sure that there's money flowing from different place, from one place to another, and that people have livelihoods, and that we are doing good things in the universe. And I think that for me, tying that the human aspect to business, the business mindset, it's very much about let's grow, let's do good things, let's employ amazing people, and seeing that bigger picture of a vision and what those goals are for the vision. And my job, obviously, is to make sure that the people part of it comes along with that. But in essence, I can't do what I do without understanding the business mindset of the clients. And so that business mindset is really where it all starts. And it's really important to me. I can't do what I do without understanding it.
So one of the things you said was that you're a business junkie, and I think I
Mhm.
am as well, and that's why I started the show. But how does it show for you that sort of passion for business and entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So a variety of my clients have outright said to me, and even in my corporate career, you understand what we're doing here, you get it, right? And it's not just about the people to me. Obviously, I'm an HR professional and a leader, and what I lead on a day-to-day basis, but I am all about the business in terms of understanding it so that I can do my job better. And I have always been told, even from the beginning of my career, you get it, you understand what that looks like. And I think that some of it is the take that I had in undergrad and grad school, where my majors are not in HR. They're in business and in marketing. And so I think I just have this lens of how do we move businesses forward and how do we market and how do we have that growth. And um, my bookshelf is not HR books. They're not HR books. It's all about business podcasts, business books, business everything. I'm constantly ordering business books for my clients. They're not HR books. They don't need to learn
Mm,
HR. I know HR,
yeah.
right? It's all about the business side of it. And I am a junkie. Like I want to know their financials. I want to know where we're at. I want to know how I can help with that. And it's just how I've always looked at it.
That's amazing. And we'll go into your journey of how you moved from corporate
Sure.
America into your consultancy. But before we get there, tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
Yeah. So my father was a primary care physician in a very rural town in northern New York. He passed a few years ago, but he's just driven. He was always working. And I'm not saying that I have adopted it to that extent, but it's this, he came from very humble beginnings, and he saw the value of work and he saw the value of loving what you do.
mm,
And my father loved what he did. And in reality, he struggled in retirement because his life was helping people be healthy.
mm,
And he didn't have that in retirement. And he really struggled with that because he didn't have kind of his purpose anymore. And when people ask me what my hobby is, I struggle to answer that because I love what I do so much that if I'm ever bored, the first thing I want to do is do my business and do my profession. And and I don't want to be a 24/7 person that is an absentee parent and all those kinds of things. I have teenage girls, but I definitely got that drive and that work ethic and the importance of loving what you do and being really dedicated to it from my father.
that's amazing. This isn't one of the usual questions, but why do you love what you do?
I love seeing light bulbs go off. So I live at an intersection of business and humans. And when I can help business owners, executives, understand human behavior and motivation, and see the light bulb go off and
Mm,
help them through conversations and decisions and what it looks like to have an awesome employee experience and how that translates to business and customer experience. Like the light bulbs go off
mm,
and they are so grateful because I somehow we all have superpowers and my superpower is translating business and humans. And at the same time, I have humans, right? Who may not be in the right seat, might be faltering, might have some issues, whatever. And I'm going to help them understand, right? If they need to be in a different seat, I'm going to help them get there. I'm going to help them understand what their superpower is.
mm,
And at the same time, they're going to understand what the business is, how they fit into the business and what that looks like. And it's really this crux of business and humans. And a lot of people think that it's business versus humans,
yeah.
and I prefer an and in that space in between because it's possible. It's not without work, but I feel like that's one of my superpowers. And when I see those lights go off on either side, when I see the lights go off and we're on a better trajectory because they understand, I am like, it made my day. Like I have a hard time going to bed at night because I'm so excited.
That's amazing.
That's
That's great.
ridiculous, but it's
No,
true.
it's not. No, it's not. It's what you're sharing is a passion and a purpose, and what you do fulfills you. And I think there are people listening to this show that might be not doing what their mission, their message, their purpose is.
Correct.
And I'm hoping they'll hear inspiration from what you say. It might not be HR. It might not.
Yeah,
Might
fair.
it probably won't be HR. But if they can see
Hmm.
that there are things out there that people are hugely passionate about, and if you can find a business that works with that, Gary V is very good at communicating that of if you've got if you have passion for your job, it doesn't feel like a job.
Correct.
And I think that's what we should all be striving for,
Right.
is
Right.
having those things in our lives. This podcast is something that I have a massive passion for. 7.5 years I've been doing it. And why do I keep on doing it? Because I like communicating. I like listening to people. I like hearing people's stories and understanding where their motivation is and how they got to achieve what they've achieved. So I'm really hoping that people will get inspiration from what you're saying. So thank you for sharing.
For sure.
So you spent 25 years in corporate. What was the moment when you realized that it was time for you to start your own business?
So about 2 years before I left, I had lunch with one of my favorite people on earth. She is a executive search consultant recruiter. She had placed me much earlier in my career, but we just kept in touch and she's a dear friend and we had lunch every quarter or so. And it was about the time when I was starting to see that maybe I needed to do something different or find a different culture or company or whatever. I was in a large publicly traded company, and was starting to feel some itch. And she's just always somebody, because she knows the talent world and knows the HR space. She knows what's going on. And so we were talking about that, and she was asking me what I want to do and what kind of company do I want next, those kinds of things. And I was really struggling to answer that. And she said, she just got this exasperated look and sighed really heavy. And it was like this duh, like she wanted to knock me over the head. She's like, Karen, when are you going to hang out your own shingle? And it was, she always knew that it was in me to start something of my own, but it was like, okay, Karen, get your stuff together and do it. Right. And
Did
at
she
the
know before
time,
you?
oh, yeah. At the time when she said that, I was like, absolutely not. When you end up in large enterprise in a big job, right, that's a huge cliff to jump off to
Yeah.
go from,
Yeah. I've done it.
that to nothing,
Yeah.
right? Like it's pretty darn scary. And I was like, gosh, I don't want to start all over again, given
Yeah.
the level that I'm at this point. I don't want to do that. And so at the time, I was like, no, we're not going down that path. No, no, no. And then fast forward about a year, I'd been very picky about looking at other chief HR roles around, and just this isn't an ego statement, it's just facts that I had never lost a job in the final round of interviews. Every job that I've ever been in the finals for, I've gotten. And I had two roles that I was interested in. I only applied to a few different roles that I was very picky about, was very interested in them. And I lost both of those roles within a month of each other in the final round. And I know why. Like, I know the rationale. I'm still in touch with the people that were the hiring managers and stuff. It's just how I roll. And I don't blame them whatsoever. And quite frankly, I took it as a sign from the universe that I needed to do something different and that I wasn't meant to be that embedded chief anymore. And so I gave myself a few weeks to cry in my beer. And finally looked at my husband and I said, remember when Pat told me that I needed to potentially do my own thing? He said, yeah. And I said, and so here's some of the things I think I can do as a consultant, right? And these are the kinds of charges, money and fees and pricing that I think I can have with it. Obviously, I'm going to need some buffer, but I think I can make this work. And so I formed my LLC early in 2022. I worked on what those products and services and branding and website and naming and all the things for several months. And in mid-August of 2022, I walked into my president's office and I said, I love you dearly and I will continue to support you, but I'm going to do it as a consultant if you want me, but I'm not going to do it as an employee. And they were one of my first clients, and
Amazing.
many of my former employers are clients of mine even to this day. And I'm just really blessed that I had a really great network and a good reputation to do that. It took a little bit to get back to where I needed to be financially, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
No.
Like I literally would not trade it for the world.
So what does it give you that you weren't getting before?
For me, I was the last role was a publicly traded, very large organization. And I realized I didn't know this going into it. But going into that role, I learned over the years that at that size and that level of public scrutiny, my profession often turns into a risk mitigation and legal exercise, numbers,
Yeah.
not necessarily about humans and business anymore. And like I mentioned earlier, like I'm
Yeah.
all about that humans and business. I'm not going to let my clients or my former employers get into trouble. I know how to navigate the law, even though I'm not an attorney. Like I've been doing this long enough to know
Yeah.
how to stay out of trouble, but there's lots of ways to handle situations and still be legal. And I just really felt at that level, humans were turning into numbers
Mm.
and it was all about managing risk. And that was not getting me out of bed every day. And I just I needed to not have that as the mindset anymore. And I needed to get with people who I could work with that intersection
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And for me, that's small businesses and nonprofits. It's all about that crux for them. Compliance is table stakes. But I had to get back to a group of people that wanted to do the right thing by humans and the right thing in business.
Mm.
And they understood how I do that and how I come across. And I just didn't fit big enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
Burnout. This is something that a lot of people struggle with, and sometimes they leave the corporate world because of burnout. What's your
Yeah.
view on burnout and how to mitigate it and try and get the most out of your life rather than feeling that feeling?
Yeah. What I have learned, even after starting this, is that it is not how much you work. It is not how much effort you put into it or energy you put into it. It's whether you're aligned or not. Because I feel full 110% alignment with what I'm doing right now. And I can literally work 12, 14, 16-hour days. And sometimes I do. And I don't feel a lick of burnout because I am aligned with what I'm doing and I love what I do and the people that I'm doing it with.
Mm.
And burnout happens when, in my opinion, it happens when you're going against who you are and not taking care of who you were meant to be and what your superpower is.
Mm.
Because when you're aligned like that,
Mm.
it's magic. It's just you're in flow all the time. And yes, you might get a little extra sleep, but you're excited to get out of bed in the morning regardless.
Yeah.
I went into a really deep burnout at the end of my corporate career. And there were some mitigating factors about being a midlife woman and some other things. My father had just passed, right?
Sure. Sure.
There was, I have teenagers at home, right? You just add it all up and there was
Yeah.
a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
But it was deep burnout and I was having physical ramifications of it. I was deeply unhappy, depression, like all the things. And once I really got into flow with my new business, I can work crazy hours and not feel burnout at all. So I
Yeah.
think it's when you're just unaligned.
Yeah. What piece of advice do you wish you'd known before starting Human Smarts, which is your business?
Yeah. I wish I had listened to some of the things that I heard that I felt were counterintuitive. I had heard, don't waste your time networking everywhere because, you have a very specific service and you need to be very clear about that and what rooms you're in. I didn't listen to that. It took me a really good chunk of time to figure that out. I also was every marketer in the world says you have to knit and you have to figure out who you want to work with and what you want to do for those people. And that is counterintuitive because you think going out the gate, I'm going to do anything for anybody. If I think I can help, just going to say yes. And to some extent, that's still true, but how you market it is different.
Yeah.
And I had not marketed very well in the beginning and not really gotten clear about what I was going to do for who and how.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the most common HR challenges that
Hmm.
clients of yours face?
Yeah, it's usually three things. The first is that they've already gotten themselves into compliance trouble. They have some sort of lawsuit or major complaint or huge kind of legal or compliance issue. That's obviously incredibly painful and sometimes incredibly expensive
Mm.
for business owners. And it's usually because they've been winging it. They're small businesses and they haven't had expertise on their side and they're just trying to do it the best they can. Just don't have the expertise to handle it themselves. So that's number one. Number two is drama. Usually, drama happens because we're not willing to have difficult conversations with people and things fester.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we have dynamics and toxicity and all kinds of things going on because we haven't necessarily handled what we needed to handle and created a culture where that's not okay. And I'm a certified crucial conversations facilitator. Like I know how to get through difficult conversations. And so I do a lot of education and coaching of my clients. Like I'm not a coach, but like coaching them through conversations is really helpful because you have to have conversations. I say that procrastinating difficult conversations is not like fine wine. You get better with
Mm,
time. It only gets worse. And so that's a big thing that I help my clients with is making tough decisions and having tough conversations. And so that's something that often keeps people up at night, is because it's festering and they don't know how to get out of it. And then the third thing is when we have and that goes into recruiting and retention issues too, right? If you've got stuff going on, then it's hard to keep people around. And then the third thing is often around productivity. It's that accountability and making sure people are on the boat and swimming or paddling in the right direction is not always the easiest to do because a lot of my small businesses have family members and people that they've known forever in their businesses, and holding people accountable is not always the easiest. It's a balance,
mm,
right? We're not going to harass anybody or be mean about anything, but we do need to be accountable to the business.
mm,
And sometimes we have productivity challenges that we haven't dealt with.
mm.
So it means that the business isn't doing as well or isn't as profitable or isn't growing as fast as the business owner wanted it to be.
Right, let's explore some of those areas.
Yeah.
So the first one is difficult conversations. So I
Yeah.
believe hiring and firing is the hardest thing in business. I had that when I was in corporate. I've had that now in a small business. And let's talk about firing initially. So let's say you're in a small business. You've got generalists, because this is something that happens a lot. When the company is growing, you start with generalists doing lots of different things, and you get to a stage where you need to start to get into specializations. Comes up loads on this show. But that
All the
when
time.
and when you're working with those people that you've worked with for 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe you brought them across from your previous job. How do you help you described it as coach, but how do you help people with those awkward conversations where they've known people for a long time and you've got to have that difficult decision of maybe it'd be best if you moved on?
Yeah. So it's really that moment where I'm helping humans understand business because what got us here isn't going to get us there. You've probably heard
Mm,
that. And it's the business is growing, its needs are different. We are specializing jobs. And a lot of the conversation is this is your superpower. And yet, this isn't what this business needs. And we're happy to help you however you need to move on and find that fit for you. It's a very empathetic conversation. These are not easy. And I've had to have it with family members because a lot of small businesses introduce have it family members in that conversation. And it's so hard and it's so emotional, but it's that moment when we have to be clear that we're not generalists anymore.
mm,
Your role isn't as broad, it's very specific. And
mm,
these are the roles that we really need. And
mm.
unfortunately, there's just not a fit for that. This is what I do anyway. This is what I believe your superpower is. And this is the path I think you need to take. If you need introductions, if you need whatever, happy to help, but this isn't the right spot anymore.
And aligned to that, which is slightly different but similar, because I also hear this, they've got the right people, but they're in the wrong seats. They're doing the wrong jobs. How do you navigate that scenario as well?
Yeah. So this is very common, right? I'm often walking into companies that have a whole pile of generalists and everybody's stepping on each other. And as they grow, right, there's territorial issues, there are all things like that. And essentially, what I boil it down to is what makes you like these are career conversations. What makes you happy? I have this going on with a client right now. Can you please help me understand all the different generalized tasks that you're working on? And which ones are you procrastinating? Because that's what you shouldn't be doing,
Mm.
right? Let's figure out what you love to do, what your superpower is, and get you specialized in that. At a CPA firm, 7 partners, stepping on each other all over the place because they were all acting like a managing partner. And I made them all pick like out of all the business functions, right? Because obviously there's being a CPA, but there's also marketing and business
Yeah.
development and the firm finances and governance and all the things, right? And I said, I need each one of you individually, privately to tell me, like, what do you think your superpower is? What do you enjoy the most?
Mm.
And let's figure that out,
Yeah.
right? Because y'all can't be swimming in the same pool. That doesn't mean that we're not having conversations or creating silos,
Yeah.
because I don't want silos, but you have to be very clear about roles. And
Yeah.
as you get bigger, this whole everybody's a generalist thing doesn't work.
Mm.
You have to get more specialized. And so I have some very heart-to-heart conversations with people about, I understand this is going to feel somewhat like a takeaway, but in reality, I want you doing more of the things that you love and what you're really good at and what your unique talent is. And then we can have a more fruitful conversation about how do we splice and dice all
Yeah.
the generalists.
Yeah. Amazing. What does white glove HR support mean?
Yeah. So you will find, or at least some of my clients find, and certainly I've seen it in other venues as well, where HR is more of a bureaucratic endeavor and very much a paper pushing, and we're going to, and maybe not literally paper anymore, but
Yeah, I know what you mean.
definitely that transactional pieces of HR. It is not taking care of our employees, making sure our leaders are being the best leaders. It is not making sure that employee experience is honed and very, it's almost curated to a sense of, this is, it all aligns, right? Their experience aligns, their candidate experience, and that translates into the customer experience, right? There's a cultural and kind of expectations that we have that everybody has this experience, both on the customer side and the employee side, that really fits. And that means that we have to treat people like humans. And it means that we have to take care of them when they're candidates, and we have to take care of them when they need things as an employee. We have to take care of them and be as much as possible that really empathetic, supportive touch for them, because transactional HR doesn't feel good.
Yeah. It's got to
It
be
just
done
doesn't.
with the heart, hasn't it? It's got to be done
It
with
has
understanding
to.
humans.
Yeah.
So my experience of
And that's the
people,
one of the things that I love is human behavior and motivation. And so all day long, that's what gets me out of bed.
what's your favorite book when it comes to human psychology?
Oh gosh, I have so many.
What's your favorite?
Um, I love probably some pieces with Adam Grant. More authors in philosophy, more than because they all have written a million books.
Mm.
But Adam Grant, Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, all huge fans. Angela Duckworth, just some really, really great philosophy around really supportive servant leadership, and at the same time working your butt off. Those are not, it's not an oxymoron. You have really supportive leadership and also get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's go a little bit more into your business. So, when I was
Yeah,
researching, you were saying that referrals are your best marketing strategy.
yeah, for sure.
So, why is that?
So the good news is that she was my manager when my first job out of undergrad, and she knew I was an introvert. She knew that I would rather crawl under a rock than walk into a ballroom full of random strangers. And she told me, she's like, Karen, she was an amazing female leader. I'm so grateful that I ran into her much earlier on in my career, because it was just this ideal of what I wanted to be. And she could walk into anything and just whatever she needed to say or however she needed to show up, she did. And she's, Karen, I know it's not going to be comfortable, but network the heck out of yourself your whole career. And so the good news is that 25 years later, I had a heck of a network. And I really haven't had, survival mode to much extent, because my network was so deep and people knew me, and they knew me for the genuine Karen and that and what I do best and what I don't want to do. Everybody knew that. And so it was this an immediate thing where I was like, wait a second. Like, we can have you because you're not attached to an employer anymore, and we don't have to pay for your full-time compensation. And, the answer is yes. And referrals are everything. Relationships for me for everything. And I have tons of referral partners in lots of different professions, everything from employment attorneys to business brokers to all kinds of random professions that send me business and they think of me when they can clearly see there's a people issue and they know who to call. And so it's a lot of obviously creating new relationships, but really cultivating those relationships that I've had for decades, quite frankly. That ages me, but decades. I have known some of these people
Yeah.
and to this day they're just still sending me business. It means I have a really random roster of clients, but it's if I can help, then I'm going to help. I do say no every once in a while, but it is very referral based and it's because I let people know who I am, what I do, and I care about them and they know that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. What does growth look like for you in your business?
Yeah, growth for me is a little picky. I am growing. I intend to grow. I intend to grow pretty substantial team. And at the same time, I'm going to be very picky about clients that you have to care about your employees. I've had a few clients that I've brought on board that really did not care one iota about their employees, and that doesn't work for me. I can't support that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be picky about growth, but growth means that I have probably a few dozen on the team, and we are really doing that white glove HR service in a very meaningful way and making business better.
So what is your team? Who do you have as either employees or
Yeah.
associates that work with you?
Yeah, so I have a few people who are my level, like fractional chief HR officer kind of level, that help out when I'm too busy, right? If I can take a project myself, I'll take it, but I need some people at that very senior strategic level to be able to take projects or handle things if I'm too busy. And I suspect more of that will happen as we keep growing, where I'm bringing in other people to do some of that work, and they're amazing. So I love bringing them in and having my clients meet some other people on my team. Um, I have HR generalists on my team that really do the day-to-day employee work. So if employees have questions or onboarding or the transactional stuff, or they have a complaint, they have a benefits problem, they have whatever that looks like. I have an HR generalist that is assigned to most of my clients, but going to be here more soon, but does that day to day and is more available than I am. And then I have a payroll team as well that takes care of all the payroll compliance and all the processing. It's one thing in my career that in big enterprise payroll often sits with finance or in a different space. And I've overseen it, but I can't say that it's not my subject matter expertise as much. So
Yeah.
I have a payroll manager who is just a guru of gurus about payroll, and I lean on her a lot in that space, and my clients love her. She's amazing. And I have somebody who processes payroll as well. So yeah, it's a team deal for sure, and it's going to keep on being more so simply because I there's only so much I can do.
Yeah. And so for you for 2025, sitting at
Mhm.
early February 2025, is your priority revenue, profitability, employees, or all of the above?
Profitability is always a thing, but we're pretty profitable. I've figured out what roles I need on my team and how much capacity they have, and then obviously build in profitability to that. And so I think I less worried about profitability simply because I have an equation that works for that. And then, but definitely revenue and building the team.
Yeah.
No question. And I'm not sure which one would be. Obviously, the team generally comes just a slight bit after the revenue simply
Yeah.
because I need the contracts in the door. But in reality, they're both really important to me this year.
And how have you managed that big company, public listed, Fortune 50 sort of company that you came from versus working with smaller companies that are growing and need slightly different things. How were you able to transition from big company into knowing what the smaller companies need?
Yeah, I think that there's some pros and cons to it and things that I've learned. So the advantage of it, I think, for my clients is that I have a very big picture mentality. So I can vision board with them. I can get through their strategic planning and see what possibilities are very quickly because I come from a bigger environment. So I know what it's like to get there and the kinds of things you need to do and the mentality, that growth mindset that you need in order to get there. And so I think for that purpose, I think it's been really helpful for me to have that bigger experience. There are nuances to small business that just don't happen in enterprise level of situations. The benefits possibilities are really not as interesting on the small business side. There's just some nuance to what is available to small businesses
Yeah,
for a reasonable cost
yeah,
that an enterprise you just don't worry about as much because there's money there,
yeah,
right? And so I think that's some of those are some of the things that I've had to navigate that. Good gosh, I had no idea how great I had it in enterprise where I could have any carrier at any price because I had volumes of headcount. And that just doesn't happen in
yeah,
smaller spaces. And I think benefits is probably one of the most frustrating pieces
yeah.
of the small business world.
I would agree. How have you evolved as a leader?
It's a great question. So I love, you may have heard of it, this book called Who Not How. It's by Sullivan and Hardy. It is very much this. Listen, I've been delegating for a long time. I've had HR teams for a long time, but really honing in on what is a business owner and a visionary and versus all of the other stuff that you have going around and honing in on that superpower that is yours, that is not everybody else's, and becoming the leader that says, yes, it's my business, but I need you to manage the finances and I need you to run the processes and I need you to do that. I can delegate HR stuff all day long,
Mm,
right? Because that's what I've always done.
yeah.
Delegating some really important pieces of my business to other people is a different game. And so I've learned I've learned to figure out my who, not how, and understand that my time and my resources are spent
Yeah,
or elsewhere.
good. Because often in small businesses, the founder leader is the bottleneck because you've already done it, you already know how to do it. Can anyone do it as well as you? You're like, probably not, but you're right. Delegation is so important. Once you've got some employees, you
Yeah,
need to make sure you're doing the high ticket items, you're doing
right,
the high ticket
right,
generating tasks, and not be necessarily in the mud and the weeds discussing everything. So
correct.
yeah, it's hard. It
Yeah.
is hard. Well,
Especially it's that back end stuff, like trusting somebody else to sell, trusting somebody else to do your finances, somebody
yeah,
else to do that back end stuff that doesn't make money at all.
mm,
Sales does, but like those back
yeah,
end
yeah,
kind of
the operational
functions,
bits. Yeah,
right? And that doesn't make me money at all, but it's this is my baby. Like, and I've never really felt like that before.
yeah.
So yeah,
What would you say your risk appetite is?
pretty high. I know that in my profession, you would probably think that risk aversion would be the way of the world, but it's just not for me. I don't have risk aversion. I have people on even last night texting with a new partner of mine, referral partner of mine, and he was like, "Would you do this? Would you do that? Could we partner on that?" And just all of these kind of rapid fire kind of questions. And I'm like, yeah, why would we not do that? That's my first answer to everything. And yeah, obviously we're going to make some step in it sometimes and make some mistakes, but if you don't ever risk anything, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, or not very far, very fast.
True.
That's the thing.
Yeah. I don't have patience for doing it slowly.
What would you say your biggest challenge has been?
Probably getting over some of those counterintuitive things that I didn't believe in the beginning. Figuring out what rooms I need to be in with what people who do what professions and getting very focused. I'm not great at focusing. And I think that has probably been both from a product service line perspective and also figuring out what rooms I need to be in with what people
What do you mean by
has
that? What do you mean
probably
by the rooms that you need to be in?
yeah. I when I first started, I did something that I call shotgun networking. It's pretty much going to everything and anything
Yeah.
all the time, giving out a bazillion business cards, never seeing these people again. Not much fruitfulness comes out of all of that. And they weren't the right rooms. They were often B2C rooms, not B2B rooms.
Yeah.
And they were not necessarily business people who understand the value of what I do.
Yeah.
I had to get really clear because my time is incredibly valuable at this point, given how busy we are. And I had to get really clear. I couldn't do that shotgun networking anymore. And it wasn't fruitful to begin with. And so I
Mm.
had to get very focused about what rooms, what groups, what people, what professions, what rooms am I in, and what audience is around me, and and those people end up being cheerleaders because we're all doing this thing and we
Mm.
all have the same kind of stuff going on. And so it's been really an evolution of picking what rooms to show up in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. As you say, the tendency is, especially at the starting a business, you think you just need to be out in front of as many people as you can,
Right.
and actually much more targeted
Correct.
conversations will be a lot more fruitful. And especially in
Yep.
your industry where it is a people business, you do need to have that, like, how do people trust that you'd be able to navigate a difficult conversation or help them with a difficult conversation if they've never seen you or spoken to you or understand
Right.
what your motivations
Yeah.
are and things like that. So
Yeah.
it is very, it's so important, so important.
There's a trust thing
Yeah.
that has to happen
Yeah.
in order for people to I just posted about this yesterday. I have new client vast majority of my new clients don't have any structure at all
Yeah.
to HR stuff. They don't have a handbook, they don't have an org chart, they don't have policies, they don't have really anything in terms of HR. They've just been winging it and there's
Mm.
nothing, no structure. And they pretty much, you can tell just the look on their face. I'm usually on Zoom with all of them, and you can tell by there's this shame that they
Mm.
don't have their stuff in order.
Mm.
It's like, no, relax. I'm not here to judge. Most of my clients don't have all of that stuff in order,
Yeah.
so you can just breathe. It's
Yeah.
okay. Just tell me what you have and or what you don't have, and that's fine. It's just a starting point. As long as you want to get better, that's great. But it is this trust thing that they know that I'm not judging, not shaming. It's okay. Your secrets are okay with me. We will get through it. And that takes a little bit to get business owners there because they're used to looking like everything's fluffy and awesome.
Yeah. The whole Instagram sort of mentality, they've got to show that the business is
It's the
perfect.
highlight reel, right? Yeah, it's not.
No, in most cases it's not. Whether you're dealing with
Mm-mm.
people or business or clients or marketing or
Right,
sales
right.
people, it's always messy. And I think to an
Yes.
extent, smaller businesses, a lot of the fun is that it is messy and it is hard.
All day
And
long.
yeah, exactly. Like when you're in a corporate environment where you've got a team of 10 below you that are doing X, Y, and Z, is a very different mentality when you're
All
working
day
with
long.
smaller businesses. Yeah.
Yeah, on my LinkedIn banner at the top of my profile, it's we love a good mess. Bring it on. It means that I got something to clean up. If you're perfect already, like why are you hiring me?
Yeah, exactly. What's the next plan for the next 2 to 5 years for you?
Grow, help as many small businesses as possible to navigate people waters. It's not easy. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the people world, and it can make or break you. Do you have the right people in the right seats and have role clarity and accountability and all of those things? It can make or break you. And so I want to grow and help more people, more
Amazing.
business owners to see what that talent picture could really look like and how it affects their business.
Amazing. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
Leave corporate.
You were in
I
it for
just,
25
I,
years though. You like, because I was there for 14, and when I left, it was like people were saying to me like, "Aren't you going to miss the structure? Aren't you going to miss the?" I'm like,
nope.
done. I'm done with that. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I
Done.
Yeah,
Done. Yeah, no, it's definitely the best decision I ever made. It never entered, I made sure that going back was never a plan B. I don't have a plan B. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make sure that it gets there. And I never let that enter like my psyche at all.
yeah,
And I'm fully aligned with it. And I feel very like authentically genuine about what I am and who I do it for and how I do it. And I would not change it for the world.
yeah. Amazing. Next question. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
So I have a dear friend who is also an executive search person, different one, who when I first started, I didn't even know what fractional was. I was just really doing consulting projects, and we were on the call together. It was only about a month in or so, and she said, "Karen," she said, "I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice. I know you didn't ask for it, but I have some advice for you." And she always has these little snippets of wisdom, and I love her dearly, and I've known her for 20 years. And she said, "Be open to what comes to you." And the next week, I talked to a friend who I hadn't caught up with in forever in Indianapolis doing fractional work. And it changed the whole trajectory of Human
Right.
Smarts. But I wouldn't have even thought about fractional,
Mm,
even from my friend in Indianapolis, if I hadn't said, "Be open to what comes to you."
right.
And it just was a total mindset shift. Get stuck in whatever you think is going to work or what you
Yeah,
think you want to do. Just keep an open mind.
yeah. Amazing. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
I have two.
Give a shout
Um,
out for two. It's fine.
that leader in the beginning that helped me understand what executive female leadership could look like. Those were some huge learning moments with her, and just having that mentor idol kind of person and seeing how she operated in the business world. It was a regional bank, like pretty male heavy, and
Mm,
seeing what and how she operated was like gold for me. And then the other one is that I had another leader later on, and it was my last job where I had anybody in HR above me. And he so clearly lived at the intersection of business and humans. Yes, he had the HR chops, but he lived at that business first almost level and was able to really help talent support the business stuff. And he could articulate it like nobody's business. And I think it really just solidified my philosophy about how I do what I do.
yeah, amazing. Tell me about a regret that you have.
Oh gosh. I have a regret that when I got really busy, I didn't worry about business development anymore.
Oh,
I had
yes, we've all done
I
that.
had a chunk. Yeah, I had a chunk where I was super busy and the money was crazy and like all the things, and I didn't have a lot of time to do business development either, but I pretty much dropped it for a few months and that was really stupid.
Yeah, yeah. You've got to balance that between having a
You do.
pipeline of work coming through. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. What are you most proud of?
Mm. I am most proud of the work that I've done with my clients and helping them be better and to grow and to evolve into really awesome employers. Because when you have happy employees, you have profitable business.
Mm.
And I love seeing that on the other end.
This isn't part of the question, so just what you said. How are you measured? How is success for you measured as a fractional HR?
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's not necessarily a metric thing. It's very, in my opinion, very much about the relationship and the kinds of things that they trust me to do, right?
Okay.
Things that they trust me to be in conversations about that are sometimes deeply personal or embarrassing or whatever that looks like. They allow me to help them through things. And sometimes it's not even HR related, but when I get called and say, "Hey," that happened yesterday, "Hey, I just need 5 minutes. Can you call me when you get a minute?"
Yeah,
Right? And it's not necessarily a metric. I know I'm helping them and I know that they see value in that because I'm their first call.
that's amazing. Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
Great question. Wow. I am so transparent. I'm not sure that well, that people don't know.
Is there a
Wow.
hobby? Is there a story? Is there something that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you know me from. If you know my childhood, I was a competitive figure skater and a very serious classical pianist and singing in choirs and all kinds of things.
Do you still sing in
So
choirs?
I don't, but I'm about to try out for another one or
Oh,
for an
good
audition
luck.
for one. I've been raising children and having big jobs, so I haven't really done a lot of that. But my kids are getting older and I get to get back to some of that. And I do have a grand piano at home that I do play and but I love singing in choirs specifically. I don't love the solo kind of aspects as
Yeah,
much. And quite frankly, my body is broken from figure skating, quite literally broken
really.
from figure skating. And so I definitely don't do as much of that anymore.
Do you still go on at Christmas time? Do you have anywhere local that has a sort of ice
Yeah.
rink? Do you go?
Yeah.
Do you
And
show
my kids
everyone
love it.
up? Tell me you show everyone up.
People are fairly aware that I know how to skate. There's no question about that. Usually those kinds of events are very packed and so like there's
Yeah,
no tricks happening or
yeah.
anything, but it's fairly clear that I know what I'm doing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. What does legacy mean to you?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Legacy for me is a couple of things, and it's really about passing down who I am and just some wisdom. My children have seen a very hardworking mom, and that I am passionate about what I do, and that being happy in your role is really important. And hard work gets you places. So I think that's really important for me. And they've already seen that. But I also have a team of people who have learned a lot about that intersection of business and humans that is a departure sometimes from what my profession teaches
Mm,
about how to be good at HR because it
mm,
is still a little on that old school bureaucratic thing and teaching my team about employee first and that experience and how it translates to business and the customer experience and what that white glove looks like and that transactions and compliance are the bare minimum.
mm.
I would hope to believe that I have a generation of HR generalists who will be amazing HR leaders someday.
Amazing. Thank you. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or find out more about your business?
Yeah, so I am very active on LinkedIn. Happy to find, you can definitely find me there. I'm also at Karen at Human Smarts, and that's plural, consulting.com. And happy to, if anybody has any questions or just want to pick my brain, happy to set up some time totally free to do.
Amazing. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for your time today. It's
You're
been an
so
absolute
welcome.
pleasure speaking to you. Cheers.
Thank
I really hope you've enjoyed that content. It's a really fascinating interview that I've done there. So please do, if you are enjoying this content, please do give it a like. Please do give a subscribe. It'd be really good to boost the subscriptions. It really makes a difference to the algorithm in YouTube. So thank you for that. If you do hit subscribe, hit the bell icon and you'll get all of the content. You'll get notified when all the content is available. Thank you so much for your time. It's really appreciated. Thanks a lot.